I stood at the doorstep with a pie in my hands, snow gathering in my hair, heart pounding louder than the holiday music I could faintly hear through the walls. The house I helped pay for, the family I never stopped supporting, the people I sacrificed everything for, they were all inside. Laughing, celebrating. I rang the doorbell again. After a few seconds, the door opened, and my father stared blankly at me like I was a stranger from the street. "Sorry," he said with a confused tilt of his head. "I think you have the wrong house." I laughed a little, thought he was joking. I said, "Dad, it's me." But his face didn't change, just cold eyes and silence. "Seriously?" I asked. He shook his head once. "We're having a private gathering. I don't think you were invited." I took a step back, stunned. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Maybe they were pulling some ridiculous prank. But the way he stood, firm, indifferent, told me everything. I turned around and walked down the driveway, snow crunching under my boots. My breath caught in my throat, not from the cold, but from something heavier, something breaking. Seconds later, my phone buzzed. It was my brother. "Layla," he said, "don't be upset, but we couldn't let you in." I said nothing. He continued, "It's just things are already tense. You being there would have made it worse." I said one word, "Understood." And I was about to hang up when he didn't. His voice carried on. "She still thinks helping with rent means she's automatically included." Someone laughed in the background. My dad, probably. Or maybe my cousin. I couldn't tell. I didn't care. I stared at my phone. My ears ringing. My face numb. I had helped with rent for 3 years. Covered utilities. Paid off the heating bill last winter when Dad said his pension hadn't cleared. Gave my brother money for books. Helped with groceries. Paid for Dad's medication when insurance failed. Not once did I ask for anything back. Not once did I hold it over them. Not once did I think I had to. But apparently I was just the help, not the family. That night, I sat in my one-bedroom apartment, the one they mocked for being small but expensive, and I opened my laptop. I logged into every account I shared with them. The rent auto-transfer? Cancelled. The joint grocery card? Blocked. Streaming services? Logged out from all devices. Their emergency contacts? Changed. I didn't say a word. I didn't send a single message. No angry texts. No emotional confrontations. Just silence. The kind of silence that echoes. My name is Layla, and from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because turns out being useful doesn't mean being loved, and being loved doesn't mean being respected. I wasn't always the outsider. At least, not at first. When Mom left, I was 13. My brother, Adam, was 7. She packed 2 suitcases and kissed our foreheads like she was heading out for groceries, not disappearing for good. My dad didn't chase her. He just lit a cigarette and said, "She was never built for responsibility." Then he sat on the couch and didn't move for hours. That was the first day I cooked dinner. It wasn't good. Overboiled rice, burnt eggs. Adam still said thank you. By the time I turned 16, I was waking up at 5 a.m. to work a bakery shift before school. After class, I cleaned houses. On weekends, I babysat for families who looked at me like I was charity in motion. All while Dad stayed home. Depression, he said. Bad back, he said. No one argued, because no one else was there to pick up the pieces. Except me. When I graduated, college was an option. Not because I wasn't smart. I had the grades, the drive, the letters of recommendation. But tuition was a joke when you're choosing between rent and groceries. So I deferred, then deferred again. Eventually, I stopped checking the deadlines. Instead, I worked. 3 jobs. Every month, I slid envelopes of cash into the kitchen drawer. Rent, electric, water. Sometimes there was a note for Adam's field trip or Dad's inhaler. I always covered it. Quietly. I watched Adam grow up in clean sneakers with a working tablet and school lunches packed from the expensive aisle. I watched Dad stay still, watching TV, flipping channels like flipping responsibilities. No one ever said thank you, but I didn't do it for that. I just wanted to matter. I wanted to be seen. The sad truth is, I didn't want praise. I just wanted presence. For someone to look at me and see more than a paycheck with legs. But even that was too much to ask. When Adam graduated high school, he got accepted into college. They threw a party for him. Balloons, cake, speeches. I remember standing in the corner, clapping. No one mentioned I covered his admission deposit, or the laptop he unwrapped, the one I paid for. They said, "Look how far he's come." No one asked how. When he called me his second mom during his speech, I smiled so hard my jaw hurt. And when someone said, "Layla, you're like the backbone of this family," I nodded like it was a compliment, not a confession, because I didn't want to be the backbone. I wanted to be a daughter, a sister, a person, not a structure they leaned on and forgot existed. But I kept giving. Every Christmas, I bought more gifts than I could afford. Every birthday, I cooked. Every emergency, I was first to show up, because I thought maybe if I gave enough, I'd finally be enough. But kindness, when given without boundaries, turns invisible. And mine did. They didn't ignore me because they hated me. They ignored me because they never thought I'd leave. It didn't happen all at once. That would have been easier to name. But cruelty doesn't always come with a slam. Sometimes it's a slow fade. It started with the group chat, the one labeled Fam Red Heart. I used to get dozens of messages a day. Random memes from Adam. Dad's blurry photos of dinner. Forwarded good morning messages from distant aunties. Then the messages stopped. Or rather, my notification stopped. I opened the chat one night, just curious. They were planning something. A barbecue at Aunt Maya's. I scrolled. They'd been talking about it for 2 weeks. Carpooling, menu planning, inside jokes about potato salad. I searched my name. Nothing. I sent a simple message. "What time should I come?" No reply. The next morning, the chat name had changed. Now it just read Sunday Crew. No heart. No Layla. I told myself it was an accident. Maybe they thought I was busy. Maybe they assumed I wouldn't want to come. It was easier to believe that than to admit the truth. I was being phased out from my own blood. A few weeks later, I came home from work earlier than usual. My feet ached, my head pulsed from deadlines. I paused in the hallway when I heard Adam on the phone in the kitchen. "She's not really family," he laughed. "More like our roommate with money." There was a pause, then more laughter. "No, I'm serious. She's always working anyway. We barely see her. But she pays rent, covers the bills, and cooks when she's around. So it works out." I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just walked quietly to my room, shut the door, and sat down at my desk. That was the moment something inside me split, not shattered, not exploded, just quietly broke away and never came back. I didn't confront him. What would have been the point? They'd already rewritten me in their story. I was no longer a sister, no longer a daughter. I was a service, a support beam, a standing order. So I started observing. When Dad asked if I could front the electricity bill just for now, I paid and then saved the receipt. When Adam borrowed money for textbooks, I Venmo'd him and took a screenshot. I made copies, backed up emails, archived every digital transaction, every transfer, every favor disguised as a casual request. Not out of spite, out of preservation. Because I finally understood that love given to the undeserving is a dangerous kind of debt, and I was the one accumulating interest. I stopped asking to be included. I stopped reminding them I existed. I started becoming what they already saw, a shadow. But even shadows learn. Even shadows grow teeth. And silence, the kind that watches and waits, is sometimes the most dangerous sound in the world. The next morning, I sat at the edge of my bed, stared at the sunlight pooling through the blinds, and made a decision, not from rage, but from razor-sharp clarity. I wasn't going to beg to belong anymore. I wasn't going to explain myself to people who saw me as an ATM with a pulse. So I started with the rent. I opened my bank app and redirected the automatic payment. For the first time in years, I moved it to a new account. One under my name only. A savings account titled Exit. I didn't tell them. Next, the grocery card. The one they always used without asking, swiping it for snacks, takeout, shopping sprees disguised as essentials. I froze it, canceled the old card, requested a new one, digital only, delivered to my email. No physical copy. No more borrowing. Then came the utilities. I called every company I'd been paying under my name: electricity, gas, internet. Quietly transferred responsibilities or closed accounts altogether. I made sure no unpaid bills could follow me. No loose threads. No trace. Then I signed a lease. A small studio on the other side of town. Cozy. Quiet. Not glamorous, but mine. The landlord gave me the keys 2 days after I applied. Clean record, great credit, he said. Wish more tenants were like you. Funny. At home, I was a burden. Here, I was reliable. I packed at night, piece by piece. Clothes, documents, the laptop I bought with my own bonus. I left behind the things they gave me, not out of spite, but principle. If they only saw my worth in material, they could keep the scraps. The morning I moved out, no one noticed. Dad was still asleep. Adam had left for the gym. I didn't leave a note. Just silence. That same day, I made a file, digital and hard copy, labeled proof. Every bank transaction, every payment, every invoice, every screenshot of the things they said, the things they took. I wasn't planning to sue. I wasn't even planning to speak. But I wanted to own my story. Because the truth is, I never wanted revenge the way people think of it. Slash tires, screaming matches, public showdowns. That wasn't my style. No, what I wanted was something cleaner. Sharper. I wanted them to face themselves. To look around one day and realize the scaffolding was gone. The house still stood, but the foundation was crumbling. And they wouldn't even know why. That's the thing about being taken for granted. People never imagine you might leave. They think your loyalty is eternal. Your love automatic. Your forgiveness endless. But I wasn't made to be a martyr. I was made to matter. And if they think I'm nothing without them, maybe it's time they find out who I really am. 3 days after I moved out, I watched the storm hit. It started with a call. Layla, Adam said, voice sharp with annoyance. Dad's key isn't working. Did you change the locks? I sipped my coffee, sitting cross-legged on the floor of my new studio. No furniture yet, just a mattress, a blanket, and the quiet hum of my space. I don't live there anymore, I said. A pause. What do you mean you don't live here? Where are you? I moved out, I said. Last week. You're joking. No. He scoffed. You're seriously ruining Christmas over a tantrum. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because he still didn't get it. This isn't a tantrum, Adam. It's balance. Click. I turned my phone face down and let it vibrate against the floor. They called. Then texted. Then called again. Dad. Adam. Aunt Maya. Even cousins I hadn't heard from in months. Each message more frantic than the last. Layla, this is ridiculous. Come on, we need the rent. You're being selfish. Dad's furious. At least give us access to the electric bill. It's overdue. I didn't answer. Instead, I logged into the power company's portal, checked the account, now closed under my name, and watched the pending balance climb. By midnight, my phone had 27 missed calls. By morning, they didn't want me back. They just wanted what I gave. Dad left a voicemail. His voice was tight, forced calm, barely hiding desperation. I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to grow up. Family doesn't abandon each other. I almost laughed at that. Abandon? Where was that concern when I stood on the porch with a pie in my hands and he said I had the wrong house? Now suddenly I was family again? I turned off my phone. Let them scream into a void. There's a silence you carry when you've been the giver for too long. A silence so heavy it feels like armor. And once you stop speaking, once you stop explaining, once you stop begging to be heard, they panic. Because silence means power has shifted. They can't argue with a wall. They can't manipulate a ghost. And that scared them more than any fight ever could. I spent that day folding laundry in peace, walking to the corner store, buying a candle just because I liked the scent. Small things. Ordinary things. But they felt mine. I didn't post anything online. No cryptic messages. No clapbacks. Just silence. Because the best revenge wasn't proving them wrong. It was showing them they never even knew who I was to begin with. They saw a wallet. I became a wall. And the calls kept coming. It took exactly 13 days for everything to start falling apart. The first was the power. Aunt Maya called me. Not to ask if I was okay, not to check in, but because Dad had called her in a panic. "The lights just shut off," she said. "Your dad says something's wrong with the account." I didn't bother explaining. I simply said, "I'm not on the account anymore. They'll have to call the company." Click. Then came the landlord. An email landed in my inbox. "Hi, Layla. Rent for this month hasn't been received. Is everything all right?" I smiled. He still thought I lived there. I replied, attaching the signed lease termination letter and forwarding the final payment receipt. Simple, professional. "Please direct all future communications to Mr. Farouk and Adam Khan. I am no longer a tenant." An hour later, he called them. I heard from a friend of a friend that Dad flipped. Said I'd blindsided him. Said I was acting out. But it wasn't a performance. It was the first time I stepped off their stage. The cracks deepened. Adam's tuition payment didn't go through. The grocery card stopped working. Dad's medication refill was declined at the pharmacy. They tried logging into the Wi-Fi, only to realize the account was closed. One by one, the threads I'd been quietly holding unraveled. I wasn't there to watch it happen. I didn't need to be. Their silence had always been loud enough. Now mine roared. That weekend, a family gathering took place. Photos trickled onto social media. Poses, plates, plastic smiles. But in every comment section, there it was, "Where's Layla? Did she take the photo? No tag for Layla?" I didn't respond, but they saw it. The questions, the absence, the shifting tide of attention. Monday morning, Adam called. Again. This time he didn't sound angry. He sounded small. "Layla, please," he whispered. "We need to talk." I let him talk. He stammered about confusion, said things were blown out of proportion. That Dad was just stressed, and you know how he is. Then the kicker. "You didn't have to leave. This is your home too." I paused, letting the weight of the lie settle in his own throat. Then I said, "You told someone I wasn't really family, just a roommate with money. Remember?" He was silent. "You said I didn't belong," I added softly. "So I made it true." Click. No shouting, no drama, just a full stop. They thought I'd always be there, always giving, always loyal, because love to them was supposed to mean sacrifice without limits. But I'd learned something they never taught me. Love isn't real when it costs you yourself. And family that only shows up when the light's off and the fridge is empty? That's not family. That's a transaction. And this time I was done paying. For the first time in years, I woke up and didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. No errands waiting. No bills I had to cover that weren't mine. No guilt stretching across my shoulders like a second skin. Just me. A window cracked open to let in the morning air, and the sound of a city moving outside, without demanding a piece of me. That's when I knew I was finally free. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I was tired of pretending I wasn't hurt. My therapist, Marisol, never asked me, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" She just said, "It takes time to understand what we deserve." And for the first time, I cried without feeling weak. Work got better too. I wasn't dragging around invisible weight anymore. I had space to think, to create. I stopped volunteering for everything. Stopped saying yes just to be liked. And wouldn't you know it, they respected me more for it. 3 months later, my manager offered me a promotion. "Lead on this project," he said. "You've got the steadiness we need." Steady. Not stuck. Not struggling. Just steady. It felt good. I found friends too. Real ones. People who didn't just call when they needed a ride or a bailout. People who asked how I was doing and actually waited for the answer. There was a woman named Cam, a single mom from my yoga class. She once said, "You have the energy of someone who knows what silence costs." I smiled because I did, and she became one of the first people I led into my new place. It was mine, all mine. A 1-bedroom, second-floor apartment with a slanted ceiling and creaky floorboards. But it had plants on the sill, warm light in the evening, and a door that only opened for people I chose. I painted the walls soft green, bought second-hand furniture that still smelled like someone else's memories. But I made a home. And for the first time, home didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a belonging. Then one night I wrote something. Just a short post. A few paragraphs about growing up in a family that used love as currency. I called it The Cost of Being the Strong One. I hit publish. I didn't expect anything. But within days, the post spread. Hundreds of women commented, shared their own stories. I thought I was alone, one wrote. Another, you put into words what I couldn't say out loud. So I kept writing. Week after week, I shared stories, reflections, quiet truths. I called the blog The Silent Shift. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. About how stepping away from people who drain you isn't betrayal, it's survival. I stopped apologizing for breathing differently, for wanting peace instead of performance, for choosing myself. And each time I hit publish, it felt like I was building something, not just for me, but for every girl who ever stood on a doorstep, holding a pie, waiting to be let in. Now I bake for myself. Light candles for joy, not to mask sadness. And I wake up knowing, this life is mine. Fully. Finally. It was a cold afternoon in December when I saw his name in my inbox. Subject line, can we talk? No other message. Just that. It had been 7 months since I left. Since I took my name off the rent, shut down the grocery card, disappeared from the chat threads and group photos. 7 months since I'd stopped being their personal scaffolding. I stared at the email for a full minute. Not with anger that had dissolved months ago. Not even sadness. Just recognition. He didn't want me. He wanted access. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed my laptop and poured myself a cup of tea. Lit a cinnamon candle. Sat by the window as dusk rolled in. It was Christmas Eve, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone to let me in. I was home. There was no big dinner this year. No forced small talk or empty toasts. Just a calm quiet, the kind that feels like a hug. I thought back to that snowy doorstep, the pie cooling in my hands, my father's cold eyes, my brother's careless words. It felt like a scene from someone else's life now. A chapter closed. They had taught me a lot in their own way. They taught me that love can be cruel, that some people will use the word family like a leash, that silence can be sharpened into a blade if you're not careful. But they also taught me something else without meaning to. They taught me how to leave, how to listen to the ache in my chest and finally do what it asked, how to stop performing worthiness for people too blind to see it, and most of all, how to come back to myself. I looked around my apartment, the little bookshelf I'd built by hand, the fairy lights blinking softly in the corner, the walls painted the exact shade of peace I always imagined. This wasn't revenge. It was release. I no longer needed apologies that wouldn't be sincere. No longer needed seats at tables where I had to beg for a plate. I had my own table now. Sometimes I still get messages. Distant cousins asking why I don't visit. Family friends saying they miss my energy. Even Adam texted last week, hope you're doing okay. Dad's been asking about you. I left them all unread. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm better. Some doors you outgrow. Others you seal shut. And some you build from scratch. Thicker, warmer, wiser. That night, I curled up under my favorite blanket and whispered something to the stillness. I used to knock on doors that didn't open for me. Now I build my own, and I always leave it open for the right people. And this year, I was finally one of them.